Hello, my name is Liz Foxwell.
This video is about the concept behind the idea that is now EMASUK Publishing. As a new teacher working in Enfield, London, I was quickly baptised into cultures different to my own. I'd come from Wales, where everyone was from a similar background and most signs were bilingual, but yet in London the cultural backgrounds were very different and there was no bilingual signage. It all seemed back to front and upside down to me. As a teacher, I wanted to do the best for my learners, and I quickly got fed up and sometimes annoyed when I asked for support for a learner only to find them removed from my class. But when they returned, they appeared to be no further forward, and on discussion with them, I felt as though they'd been taught as though they were just new learners. In years 7 to 13 meant that exams were uppermost in many of our minds, and I wanted all of my learners to be able to access what they needed to make sure that they reached and showed their potential at examination time. To me though, this was made difficult because at the time learners were removed and placed in smaller groups where they just learned basic concepts from scratch. But I just couldn't see why they couldn't use their knowledge and we could teach them the curriculum and use their previous knowledge and just give them access to English equivalent work. But I just couldn't understand why anybody else couldn't see my argument either. Luckily for me though, I mentioned this at an LA meeting and asked if we could look at basic words for curriculum areas to be translated. After much time and much negotiation, but with the support of students at the local university, I was pleased to receive some posters showing the breakdown of design technology in the curriculum in A3 format and in Urdu and Bengali. It was at that point that I realised our mistake, because A3 is really great, but it does use up a lot of wall space. Not only that, having broken the curriculum area down, it meant there were between 6 and 8 posters explaining what the design process was. So that means for each language you had to put up that many posters, so it made no space, and actually it stopped other stimuli being able to be put up, so it did really not support my learners as much as I had hoped it had. This improved as I was able in subsequent years to just put up the poster relevant to the task at hand, but as languages within my classroom changed, I was then unable to get new languages and posters in the same format. The second mistake was to put a heading and then a full paragraph underneath for just one language, because then I was the one unable to distinguish the words or the phrases I needed to focus a child to extend their learning. And thirdly, without the English translation as a reminder for me, as time went by I relied more and more on the pictures to know whether the poster was, for example, about the design brief or the evaluation. This is why, to support both teachers and learners, all of our resources are bilingual and made up of single words and phrases, making sure that we learn from these early mistakes. Whilst I was creating these personalised resources for my classroom, I also noticed that there were and still are a few books that support curriculum activities. So to make it less time consuming for you, we're developing our range of books by placing some online in the bookstore and others, like the Time Book, in the resource library. As I was creating resources for my classes, I was looking for resources that allowed me as a teacher to save time, as I had to create every resource myself, and sometimes this would mean in up to 20 different languages, which I couldn't do because I'm just not a linguist. I also wanted the same resource sheet for a particular teaching aim or outcome, so I looked at ways of teaching the same thing but personalising it so that my learners could access it. It was then that I began asking my students, who went to Saturday school, to take the words they needed in each project and ask them to have it explained, where necessary, in their first language. It took a while, but by the time my Year 10s were confident that I meant it, and they began taking their work with them, they were taking their first tests, and our results were not as good as each individual's predictions. But I could see that the seeds had been sown and carried on, and at mock time they matched up their predicted grades, and then they over-excelled at final GCSE in comparison not only to their predicted grades but to similar groups in the school and to the borough as a whole, as they were the top class in the borough. Using prior knowledge and understanding and the first language as a bridge to the second language, I believe and have shown that teachers and learners can develop academic language quicker than the more traditional methods. To see a full list of our bilingual books, go to www.emasuk.com and just choose the link to the online bookstore. To see more videos about the tools and resources with an explanation of how they work, see YouTube. Or you can follow us on our blog and Facebook page. The Facebook page is where we give our free educational resources and our offers, where the blog is generally for all sectors: health, education, business and local government, looking at current research or stories that support our work. Thank you. I look forward to meeting you again soon.